So I'm the managing director at Great Guns USA, and this is Phoebe Siggins. She is the COO of LBB. She's in London. I want to thank you guys for joining us. Time is very valuable, and the idea is just to talk to the leaders that make the day-to-day decisions in this industry. But with a little twist, we wanted to get to know you as opposed to the work that you guys do. I think you're all very accomplished, and I think a lot of people know the type of work that you guys do and what great leaders you are. So with that, I'm going to introduce you guys. We're going to start with Karin, Onsager-Birch. She's the VP Creative at Lyft San Francisco. Welcome.
Thank you, Olivia. Nice to be here.
Glad you're here. I try to find a couple of little tidbits about each one of the guests. So I'm just going to kind of go down a list of things that I found, and you can stop me. You can say, don't tell anybody this. We probably won't edit it out, but here we go. You grew up in a multicultural household in Oslo, as you said, in Norway, right? You graduated Art Center in Pasadena, which was amazing. Amazing people coming out of that. Was there anybody famous or anybody that you keep in touch with that graduated with you?
Well, somebody who was very famous for a while graduated a couple years before me, Tarsem, who was kind of in film, and Carlton Chase. Tarsem and Carlton Chase's reels were like playing in the gallery. They had just graduated when I got there. That was sort of a big deal. I started the European campus in Switzerland, and I keep in touch with a few people from there who have become really, really dear lifelong friends, and a few from Pasadena. And yeah, those are some of those friendships that have lasted so long that I, as they would say in Mexico, consider them cousins.
I read that you count as a success making yourself an enemy of Bill O'Reilly. Do you want to talk about that?
It was a very scary moment. It's a long time ago now, and it's funny, the country has gotten so much more vitriolic since then, but it was during the election, for Obama's first run, and I think it was right after McCain had announced his vice president, the governor from Alaska. And early on, all of the United States, especially women, were all excited about finally a female and sort of a real person with 5 kids. And she was beautiful, and she was on the cover of Time. But the economy was shit. It was 2008. We weren't very busy at Goodby, where Gavin, I think, and I were working at the same time. And I spent some time just going down the rabbit hole researching her legislative history in Alaska, and got really, really horrified when I started discovering who she really was. So I made a little film with a friend, Stephanie Rouser, a photographer who I'd always tried to encourage to put together a reel. And we shot it in my backyard. We put a casting call out on Craigslist, and it was very, very simple. It was just little girls talking about all the strides women have made and how our grandmothers and mothers and aunties fought before us to get to where we're at. And please, Sarah, don't set us back. And then we just took like a different line of things she's done and asked her about it to camera. We launched it on a Friday on YouTube. The next day, Perez Hilton in LA posted it on his site. And before you knew it, it went viral. And 3 days later, Bill O'Reilly featured it on his show and asked all patriotic, right-minded Americans to go find these foreign lesbian filmmakers and bring them to justice.
Oh, my God.
And we started getting death threats. Wow. I got threats of people saying they knew where my children go to school because people like me hadn't taken away their guns yet. They were coming after me and my children. It was really scary. But my husband was so proud that I'd made Bill O'Reilly feature me as the enemy of America.
Well, bravo. Well, on a lighter note, and thank you for sharing that story. I don't know if you've thought about it in a long time, but your Pinterest account says you're a creative director, worshiper of good ideas and beauty, Mexico addict, you're an extreme knitter, a modern dweller, a passionate communicator, and a greedy eater.
Yeah, that sums it up pretty much.
And here's the last thing, and I'll go to our next guest, but it says, I just found this, it said, Karin Onsager-Birch is an actress known for The Light in 2005. Is that you?
I can't believe you found that. There was a group of friends who made films, and I was in a couple of very, very film noir art house films with my clothes on.
Okay, good, good. You're quite accomplished, and I really do. I'm honored to have you on with us, so thanks for sharing that. Our next guest is Jimmy Smith. He's the CEO and CCO of Amusement Park in Irvine. Welcome, Jimmy.
Hey, thanks for having me.
We've had a lot of people that are friends in common, and we never cross paths, so I'm really honored that you're here.
A little pissed off now, though. I didn't piss off Bill O'Reilly, so
no, you didn't.
I don't feel like I should be on this panel.
I know, right? But I can say this: Hallelujah! They call me Casper, but not the friendly ghost, but the Holy Ghost. Dig, Uncle Boot. Tell me about that. That's brilliant.
Yeah, that's like, he's not a blood uncle, but he might as well be. He's like, he and his wife Patty are family. So wow. It's pretty cool, and a lot of great stories from him. And the one, I guess there was this freestyle, I was working with an editor, and it looked like it was off beat. And I kept saying, it's off beat, dude. And he said, no, it's on beat. And I said, no, it's not, it's off beat. Cut to the chase. I finally called Bootsy, and I said, dude, that's what the music y'all were doing back in the day, in the 70s. You were like trying to get the world on the beat. And he said, yeah, Jimmy, that's what we were trying to do. We just couldn't come out and tell everybody that.
I love it. That
Bootsy, was that Bootsy Collins? I wasn't just was I picking up on Bootsy Collins?
Bootsy Collins.
Yes.
Well, my son's name is Boots.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's a good dude.
Yeah. He doesn't play the bass.
That's brilliant. I mean, you've done so many things. Soul of the Game, again, I tried to find Soul of the Game. I'm not trying to embarrass you, but I know that you really couldn't buy it brand new because it's sold out, and it's a phenomenal book. That alone is probably worth an hour of conversation because it's historic in a lot of ways, but that's a great story. I'm sure you probably could spend some time talking about.
It most definitely started off as a print campaign for Nike, and book publisher called Charlie Melcher wanted to turn it into a coffee table book, and I said, who's going to buy a coffee table book full of print ads? And he said, they'll buy it if done well. And he was right. So I'm glad me and John Jay, and that was my designer, art director partner, and John Hewitt, who was the photographer. So we had a funky good time.
Yeah, no, it's amazing. Also, I saw one of your artist heroes is Tinker Hatfield, who, I think if anybody has ever worn a Nike, kind of knows who that guy is, or ever, loved basketball. That's quite extraordinary. And, I always thought that it's just so great to bring back up these great iconic people in our lives. Somehow the youth either doesn't know about it or should know about it, and we just need to keep talking about it and have a conversation so that they don't ever forget. So I love that. Gatorade. So I never really heard this story, but you kind of tell us about the G in Gatorade.
We were looking, Jayanta was one of my partners over there, me, Lee Clow, Jayanta Jenkins, Donna Lamar, and Jay and Lee and myself. We hired a bunch of designers to screw around with the logo. Gatorade had given us the license to change the logo. And this cat one of the designers came up, a sea of logos, and he had a G in there, just the G. I said, that's the campaign, it's G. Everybody wants to be G. And we just took it from there. And I remember saying it in a meeting to the client, just offhanded, everybody wants to be G, and they didn't understand what that means or what that meant. And so we had to stay on it for a little minute, but I got the chairman, CEO of Pepsi. Me and Lee presented to her, and she said, Jimmy, I like the G. That was Indra Nui. And so she said, will that be cool with the MTV generation? And I said, it might be cool with them, but it'll be a little late. We probably should move on to the next group. And so that's how that happened.
Wow. That's a great story. Did you guys know about this, Karin and Gavin?
I knew about the G.
Oh, you knew?
I didn't know the origin of the G.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm the G man, so.
Yeah, the G. Yeah, I love it. It's great. It was not attached to you, but it was in an article. It just said, The nincompoop won't last, but the brand will. Is that
That's
some?
That's a Lee
Is that
Cloud
Lee?
thing.
Yeah, is that
Lee.
Lee Cloud?
Yeah.
That's what I thought. I thought like, yeah, that's great. And then I'm not going to go on to too many more because you just have, you've written books, you've executive produced documentaries, you've done so many things and been with Amusement Park since what, 2011. So I think there was an origin of the name. I don't know, it's something to do with Disneyland or something like, I don't know.
As a kid, Disney was big, huge for any kid. When is something out of Disney not big? But I don't know, it penetrated a little deeper than me than normal. And I thought the world was like that, like fun. And discovered it wasn't as fun as it should have been and ought to be. So when we started the company, that's where the name came from. Wanted to be a place that you could come and have a good time, whether you're the client or whether you work there or whatever. You always, want to jump out of bed and be excited about what you're doing.
I'm sure everybody that works at Amusement Park must just love it. And thank you every day for probably being able to walk through those doors. Thank you for that. I really do appreciate it. And again, honored to have you along as a guest. Let's move to Gavin Lester, partner and CCO at Zambezi, Los Angeles. Welcome. I know we've talked about this earlier on, but you grew up in North London. I love that you explained that once in an interview. I thought that was very clever. And that your parents was your either mother or father was an actor. I think your father and your mother was a painter. Is that right?
Yeah, my parents were creative. Mum, artist. Dad acted. Yeah. And
did that influence you? Did you ever want to act?
No, my brother was more of the actor than me. I like to sit in the shadows, as you can see, and throw rocks at things. So I stand on the peripheral. But it was a creative household. People were very much kind of expressive. North London Jewish family, very expressive. So the volume was always up. I was the quietest of them all, but I'm still perceived as an extrovert to this day. But amongst my family, I'm not. I used to hide in the tree because it was so loud sometimes.
I've seen quite a few pictures of your office, Zambezi office, and it's filled with amazing art. Are any of those pieces yours, or it's just you've collected this amount of art? Do you still paint and do you still produce art?
I do. I went to art school. I went to an art school, pretty pronounced art school in England on the
Bath
West.
School of Art Academy, right?
Art Academy, yeah. And I studied conceptual art, and I've actually been making art for 30 years. So I'm constantly making things. I was going to talk about it later, but I think it's one of the questions. But yeah, my office is filled with some creative. If you want to have a quick look, I don't know if you can see anything. There's a gun. You see that gun there?
Oh yeah, with the circle.
Ouroboros.
Yeah.
The snake that eats its tail. So I make these kind of objects, and kind of distort real things to bring meaning to them.
The two megaphones.
Yeah. You want to quickly have a look at that? I'll quickly show you that if you.
Yeah, tell us about that really briefly.
Well, this is I think this is where we're at right now, don't you? You see these two?
Yeah, I do.
I think this is where we're at.
Yeah.
It's like flying a plane. Everything's opposite.
Yeah.
These two megaphones. I think it's just like where we're at. Wow. You have such extreme points of view right now, and extreme, and such loud voices in those two extreme points of view that there's nothing in the middle anymore. There's no nuance. So I kind of feel that's it, and it kind of sucks.
Yeah, it doesn't. No one's listening. Everybody's talking, and no one's actually listening.
It's an interesting. I think we're in a very interesting time. I hope it doesn't last. I really don't. I just think there's creativity. I think is really suffocating right now because of these opinions.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much. I do want to add. We in production. I don't know if you guys ever said this in the creative space, but we'd be working really hard, and all of a sudden somebody go, "Look, we're not curing cancer." But the truth is that I think what happened in the past 18 or 19 months with leaders like you and creatives like you, I think we did cure cancer. I think we cured a lot of things, the metaphorical cancer. I think you guys literally changed culture in a way that I think it's never changed before. So I say that, what you guys do and what we do in terms of making things is very, very important. I saw a piece yesterday on the Immortals that was so amazing. It was called, I think it was called the Board of Contracts, whereby I don't know if you probably have seen it, where the after the riots in Chicago last year, after the boarded doors, they took the boards that were literally keeping people out, that these street artists had done amazing artwork and made voting booths, and they put them around these various low income areas. Phenomenal. Like, what, how creative could that be? Like, and do something that moves culture and really, people forward. So again, I salute you guys. I think you guys are amazing. Let's get on to the first question. The power of words is more important than ever. What is the most inspiring and what is the most annoying word or words that have stood out to you in the past year? And I think we're going to start with Jimmy.
I don't know about the past year. I'd go back to like 2014, I believe it was 2015. So I apologize for that. But Black Lives Matter would be the one that, a good phrase, good collection of words that stands out. And finally, unfortunate is like unfortunate, mad unfortunate, but fortunate that it I guess the old adage, better late than never. But it, took people sacrificing their lives, not intending to, being murdered. And whether it's Trayvon Martin, all the way up to Breonna Taylor and George Floyd. But seems like the needle has moved in a positive direction. As far as not such a great word that been around for a little minute, but it's really taken on some negative connotations, and that's kind of fucked up, and that's evangelical. When I'm having a conversation, I'm a Christian, I'm a Jesus follower and believer. But when you're sitting up there having a conversation with somebody who calls themselves evangelical and they don't believe in, for example, climate change, and it's like, are you fucking kidding me?
Yeah.
What does that got to do? So it's like those two bullhorns you got going over there, Gavin. It's like, what are you talking about? Where did God say not take care of the planet, for instance, amongst a bunch of other things? All right, so those are my two.
Thank you for that. I appreciate it. What about you, Karin?
Oh my God, I'm sitting here kind of stunned because Jimmy's are so thought-provoking and thinking about the question. And again, I feel like Jimmy just sort of proved me wrong, but I actually had a problem with the question because I feel like in many ways words, as starting out as an art director, the old cliche, a picture is worth 1,000 words, I think has never been more true than now. And I would say probably a moving picture even more so. There were hundreds of years since Gutenberg when words took on this massively important role in our society. But I really believe that what moves people, and you see it when things catch fire, when things go viral, it's really the image. And I think as the world has come closer and closer together with social media, we're constantly being inundated with and receiving messages from people whose languages we do not understand and don't even come close to being able to speak. But like the images of the Afghani boys falling, chasing that plane and trying to get out of that airport, or George Floyd with, a boot on his neck. I really think that in our time, images, you can tweet an image, have taken on a much bigger power than ever before, and video more so, and more than words.
That's amazing. I do think. Well, let me ask you guys. What do you think about how does the visual imagery live on? Is it only through the vision of it, or does it does it take another does it take another part of the meaning and bring it a little bit, make it stronger by a word or two or a conversation or conversations?
When Obama ran, right, what was the word that went alongside his face?
Yes, we can.
Yes, you get, yeah.
Yeah, so.
Oh, I was going to say hope. I was thinking of the Shepherd Ferry poster.
Yep.
There was that too.
Yeah, so,
hope as well.
I think sometimes there's the perfect marriage, of those things. I think, so I like what you said. I think that the power of the image is really, it stains you, and it's universal, and it it gets through the barrier of language, doesn't it?
Word.
It transcends. Yeah. It does transcend word. I agree with that. I do.
But I mean, if something can, if anything can thicken an argument or a point of view, why not? Why not use a word?
Some of the famous work that Jimmy has done, and the three of us probably grew up worshiping to the altar of the poster. When we started out in the business, right? And it was marrying that perfect image with that perfect word or a couple of words that really was what we all aspired to and wanted to make and filled our books with. So yeah, when you can combine the two to make that 1 + 1 = 3, it's obviously extra.
Well, what you said reminded me of one of my business partners, Daryl Cobbin, and he co-runs a company called Brand Positioning Doctors. And we were talking to a potential client, and he said, my mama used to tell me, does the audio, no, whatever you do, baby, make sure the audio matches the video.
That's great on so many levels.
What about the one that is the most annoying?
I actually find there's a word that I find, it's not just this year, but the last couple of years, is millennial. It's really a demographic masquerading as a psychographic. It's sort of like it's like a catchphrase for anybody of a pretty large swath of years they might have borne and beliefs. And you can almost throw anything in there. And clients and agencies will talk about, well, this is for the millennials, or this is what millennials want, or this is how millennials think. And it's just bullshit. And I'm just like really tired of hearing it. It's like they're people, and there's a lot of different opinions and ways of living and desires and hopes and dreams and sadnesses that those people have, and just calling them all millennials and assuming that everybody knows exactly what you're talking about. It's just, I'm over it.
I love it. What about you, Gavin, in the dark?
Yeah, in the dark, here I am. I have two words, and they're kind of interesting. One I dislike and one I like, but I don't like it necessarily for how it sounds or dislike it for how it sounds. I dislike and like it for what it represents. And the one I dislike is social distancing. I think social distancing has created a whole host of issues. Obviously, COVID is the reason why we have to socially distance, but I think it has brought out some awful toxic things that have affected our culture globally, all cultures. And the irony is that the word that I'm liking, not for how it sounds, because I think this word will become very annoying as it gets more acclimated into our world, is metaverse. It's like we can no longer be with people physically, and we have to kind of now create our lives in this kind of this space, this science fiction space on a platform, which is a simulation. What I like about it is that we found a way, be it by accident, or on purpose, to still have a social experience of other people. I don't think we are hermits. So that's how I'm thinking.
I love it. Here's the second one. Have you found a calling in your personal or professional life besides advertising in general? And if so, what is it? And describe the moment that you realized it. Let's go with Karin first.
Ugh, you have to come back to me first. I think on the simplest way is doing what's right. And that goes in my personal life, that goes in my career in advertising and beyond. And I think it's doing what's right for me even if I'm not sure what to do, even if I'm not sure, how to do it. Like and that, in terms of that, I think very much about work. And when I was getting my education and my career, it's been very important to me to do what was right, even if I wasn't sure how to do it. I was going to figure it out. I was going to figure out how to make it. I was going to figure out how to do it if I felt like it was the right direction. It's been important to me not to lean on what I know, but to push for what I think is needed even if I don't quite have those skills or don't know how to do that yet.
Is there one thing that you can kind of use as an example, perhaps?
Well, it's funny. I in school at Art Center, I just remember teachers telling me that they could see me doing that before I even realized it myself. And I remember one particular moment when I was young, working at Goodby, and we had the opportunity to work on Nike for a hot second when Nike was mad at Wyden for putting all the best talent on ESPN. I had the opportunity to work on a Nike brief, and it was right when the WNBA started, and it was to kind of have Nike win over this new target of young female high school basketball players. And I didn't grow up in the United States. I didn't play basketball. And I certainly wasn't one of the cool bros who all had the same way of approaching scripts at Goodby at the time. But I wanted so desperately to win the gangbang. And I wanted so desperately to do really, really meaningful work that would speak to those girls. Yep, 1997, that's right.
Yes.
Really, really meaningful work to those girls. And I didn't know how to do it, but one night I just wrote a poem, and I'm not a poet. And I wrote a poem about what it feels like to be a girl when you want to have everybody on your team be your friends and like you. And that, but at the same time, you want to be the one to take the shot. And that conflict of the female tribe always playing nice so everybody stays friends, not allowing the hierarchy that I think a lot of boys grow up more comfortable with. Who's the best on the team? Who's the captain of the football team? Who's the general on the army? Whatever. But that conflict between wanting to play nice and have all the girls be equal girlfriends, but having that yearning to be the one to take the shot. And so I wrote something very personal about that. Really intimidated, walked into Jeff Goodby and showed it to him. And it became the kind of my coming of age piece of work in the business.
Wow. That's a great story.
Especially coming from somebody who says it's the visual.
Yeah.
That's totally true. And you know what? That's such a good such a good observation, because I think it's the only time I've done anything like that. So yeah, there you go, touche.
Yeah, but I mean, I think to argue that, I mean, yes, you're absolutely right. It was a visual thing, but you had to imagine in your head that moment or that scene, right? So you were visualizing and you were writing down what you were really was in your head, imagination, because you hadn't really experienced.
Well, I think the Brits have a very good saying for it, which is tall puppy syndrome.
Yes. Oh, that's funny.
Which is a visual, right? It's really a good visual. I don't know if they use it in the US, tall puppy syndrome, but I think
I find it's always used in like smaller countries as well. If you talk to people from New Zealand, they use it as well quite a lot. Britain, and some, like, I've spoken to people in Scandinavia that say it sometimes as well, I find.
I definitely grew up with it big time in Norway.
I love it. Well, thank you. That was great. Jimmy, what about you?
So I was leaving Wyden and Kennedy. I'd been there for 10 years, and I was going to work for BBDO New York, but I was doing it in LA, from LA. So we had to go find a high school and for my boys to play basketball. They actually ended up playing professionally. So we went to Crenshaw, and it looked like a prison. It was really kind of sad. They didn't have textbooks. Now, this is a while ago. This is in 2004. So obviously things could have changed since then. But I really wanted them to go play for the coach there, Coach Willie West. And something happened. I don't know what happened during that time period, but it had really gone down as a school. And it was jacked up. So then I went to Harvard Westlake. We took the boys, me and my wife, took them to Harvard Westlake. That looked better than UCLA. But, this is a high school, really?
Yeah.
And it was where all the celebrities, kids went and all that kind of stuff, private school. And it was really jacked up. And I remember what Pee-wee Kirkland said. He's a street basketball legend from the 70s. And he was a drug kingpin as well as a legendary basketball player. He would drive a Rolls, and this is in the 70s and whatnot. And he said, the only difference between me and the Rockefeller kid is the Rockefeller kid was born into the Rockefeller family, and I was born in Harlem, where I was born in, without a dad, and so on and so forth. And so when I visualized that, I actually saw the contrast at Crenshaw versus Harvard Westlake. I was like, man, if we could tap in to the talent that's in those neighborhoods, there are millions of kids that are just getting left behind, but right there might be the cure for the coronavirus, right? And we don't know it because we just throw them away. We throw them in prison, especially folks of color and whatnot. So part of what we do is work with folks who are maybe don't have the opportunities that everybody else had. And then I ran in a friend of mine now, his name is Shaka Senghor. He was in prison for 19 years in Michigan. He was locked up in solitary confinement for I think a total of 7 years. And one of his things that he did, he wrote a book, Oprah put it on her bestsellers list and whatnot, and he blew up from there. But I was in his office and he was showing me the artwork from folks in prison. And it's like, whoa. I mean, they've written books, they've done paintings, drawings with just pencils and whatnot. And then there's this agency called Concreates, and they're made up of those who have been incarcerated and formerly incarcerated. And just the amount of talent that's there is off the charts. So that's one of my things that we do at AP is they for instance, Concreates asked me to be a mentor, and it's like, dude, y'all mentors to me. The stuff that you guys are coming up with and doing, this is pretty incredible. So it's pretty cool.
Wow. Gavin, what about you?
Well, I think mine's like a selfish pursuit. It's like, my thing that I do, if you're outside of advertising, is the art. I guess the thing is advertising, we're always kind of taking on, the personalities of our audience or our client, right? We have to kind of promote that. So we're kind of left behind the shadows or behind the curtain. And that's okay, I don't mind that. It's like being an actor. But as an artist, you get to kind of recognize yourself. You see the marks you make or the messages you put in your work. And I get to see it and I go, I kind of like this guy. It's kind of like, I like the voice of this person. So it's something that I think is really important from a just cathartic point of view, is just like really kind of knowing yourself, and knowing where you stand. And as I said earlier, I kind of stand on the peripheral throwing rocks at things, So I think that's what it's good therapy. So it's really good therapy.
When you ask, writers who write and painters who paint and, actors who act, you ask them why they do it and they go, I can't do anything else. I have to do this. So that is a true calling of yours, is to be an artist. And I think it shows in your environment. And I think you even said that it inspires you and other people that walk into your office as well. And people who, like me, who happen to be doing some research for a little series called 5 and 30. And I see this, and I one of the images was a pillow of, it said feminist about 4 times on a pillow. Tell me about that. I wasn't sure if
I bought those, but it's the actual. There is an art, putting a pillow the irony of putting a pillow with feminists in a male office, I thought was quite ironic.
Very,
yes. Gesture. Well, yeah. I mean, we're a female-run agency, and to be honest, the diversity and the importance of having women in the workplace is, I've never thought about it because I've always been around it. I've been very lucky in that, and I'm kind of a mummy's boy as well. So, from my point of view, there has never been a difference. Some of the greatest people I've worked with, have been women.
Right.
I think to be honest, I occasionally I work with Kathy Heppenstall, and she's, if you know her, she's, she could. There's no better writer out there, and it's. Sex doesn't even come into it. Sex doesn't. It's just a great writer, So that was kind of a gesture, an ironic gesture.
Really great. Well, thank you guys for that. Let's do number 3. What is one thing that your mother or your father taught you that you've taken with you to your adulthood and use today? Let's go with Jimmy.
Just got to be twice as good, but that's going to be with anybody, any person of color, especially Black folk. You got to be twice.
Oh yeah.
You can't, start off with Pop Warner football, Little League, and whatnot. If you're going to play, I lived in grew up in an all-white neighborhood. I started off in a Black neighborhood, and following the NAACP and Martin Luther King and all that, moved into an all-white neighborhood. So it was a little difficult. So if you're going to be successful, you better not have it be a tie.
Wow, I love that. That's brilliant. What about you, Karin?
Well, it wasn't actually something either of them, my parents said. It was probably something I observed and that is that my mother, a woman can own the room in a room full of guys. My mom did not grow up with the education that my father had or my father's friends had. She was a young Mexican woman in Norway among all these very, very intellectual, educated, privileged European men. And everywhere she went, she held the room.
You did own the room in 1977 when you walked into Good Bee's office and said, I have a poem to share with you. And that became
I will say it wasn't 1977.
Oh, 1997. Sorry, didn't mean to say that. No. But you owned the room at that point.
No, you know what? I actually didn't own the room at that point because Jeff allowed me to come along to present, and there were 5 teams. And then in the end, when we went up to Nike and we sat in the conference room there in front of, there was a woman CMO who was amazing. Jimmy, you probably remember her name. I remember they retired her jersey in the office. Nancy. Yeah, and it was just me and Jeff pitching scripts against each other, and that was big moment for me as a girl, right, and starting in the business.
Gavin, what about you? Something that, one thing that your mother or your father, taught you that you take with you today?
Yeah, it's pretty straightforward, actually. I kind of pass this on, it doesn't have to be, but it's find a girl you can rob a bank with.
Find a girl you can rob a bank with. Thank you for that. I'm going to turn it over to Phoebe now for the 4th question.
I've been excited to ask you guys this because I've kind of been building up my team here at LWB, only taking on some kind of leadership roles very recently. So I kind of wanted to understand what each of you thought is the most important trait to have as a leader, and whether that might have changed at all in the past 18 months. Some people have kind of spoken with us about different things like empathy and vulnerability, but yeah, I just wanted to get your thoughts on it. So I'd love to start with you, Gavin.
What I'm learning is, I guess my journey's being a CCO, has been like, I've been every shitbag on my journey to being this person, so it's been not like I was born to do this. I've definitely had to shed my skin a few times, but I guess I'm learning to lead from behind. It's put your people in the position they're asking for, to have the autonomy that they deserve, and you find that when you give them the space and the room to own it, they will own it. And I, as a someone who can probably see the answer quicker or a problem quicker, I'm the insurance policy. I have something ready in case there's a problem, and I rarely have to use it because I think people step up to those challenges. So that's it, lead from behind, I would say. I think that's, you delegate, step back, watch the show. It's amazing.
Amazing. I'm sure when my team watches back, they'll be telling me to do something. Thanks so much. And how about you, Karin?
I think it's a really interesting one. I love everything Gavin just said. Empower and delegate and empower, I think is so beautiful and such a great way to lead. I will say that right now, you were asking how that might have changed in the last 18 months. And I do think we're in a very interesting, critical time for leaders during this period that's being coined the Great Resignation. I'm sure all of you have seen all the articles in Wall Street Journal and LinkedIn and everywhere else about how people are just quitting their jobs in droves and not sort of buying into the career treadmill ladder trajectory that I think people had been buying into for a few generations. And they also say that people join a company but quit because of a boss. Like people buy into a common vision but leave because of their manager. And so I think leadership right now is so critical, and also with the sort of everybody leaving in droves and there being such a dearth of talent, and it's such competition for talent now. So I think it's very, in some ways, I'm just going to boil it down to something incredibly simple. In order to get people to want to be led or to stay, you simply just have to be worth following.
Oh,
yeah. Absolutely. Wow. I totally agree. But hard to do, but I imagine, which all of you guys seem to have done an amazing job. So I'll have to keep there.
Well, maybe you do it the way Gavin just suggested. But I think you have to be a boss people don't want to leave.
Can I just ask a question, Karin? It's like, is that so in this day and age? I mean, in this particular time, isn't that a very fine or hard line or fence to be on? Because you can give a little bit too much and be a little bit too empathetic, and a little bit you can, be a little bit more stern. You can be out of their way and let them do what they do. Isn't that a little bit? It must be hard, I would assume.
Yeah, totally. Because I mean, if you what Gavin said is lead from behind and delegate and empower. I think there's a very fine balance between, it's beautiful when you do that, but people still have to have that confidence that that person leading from behind has got it and is going to either catch them or be worth their pay.
Lead behind with a catch, with a net.
Yeah, with a net. I think lead from behind with a net, but also I do think it's important to point out a vision. I do think people believe in vision, and people want to. I think people want to be on a team that's headed in the same direction together. I think that's the reason to work in groups and in teams, is that you feel like you're gonna go towards a vision and make something bigger than any of you could on your own. And for that, somebody has to paint a vision.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. Thank you so much. And Jimmy, how about you?
Yeah, both of you guys, what you guys said, agree with that 100%. The only thing I would add is love what you do. That's, you want to follow somebody that loves what they're doing, right? Because you want some of that. I remember I was trying to get into this agency. I won't name the agency, but I was trying to get in there. And finally, the guy seemed to have liked what I was doing. And I admired him. I thought the work they were doing and, had promise and whatnot. So finally I told him, look, dude, I got 2 weeks vacation. I will work for you for free for 2 weeks, free of charge, on my dime, on my vacation, just to show you what I can do. And so I can get in there. And he got pissed off at me. He's like, why would you want to do that? Why in the hell would you? You're crazy. I found out later he thought I was crazy because I'm trying to prove myself. It was back in the day. And come to find out, I won't get in all the details, but he hated what he was doing. So he couldn't understand why somebody would want to do that. I hate this job. And it was like, wow. And so I've noticed that the people that I've gravitated towards whether it's the Joe Muse, the Lee Clouds, the Lou Bars, and Dan White, they loved what they were doing. And that's probably why I love being there and working with those dudes. And so I want to be that. I want to be, it's up to the employees to say whether that's the case, but I do love what I'm doing, and hopefully it rubs off.
I love that.
Absolutely.
That's beautiful. Yeah, that's so true.
Yeah, and it's so nice because when, like you say, when you I can think of probably a couple of bosses that when you've worked with them, they've loved it so much, but you can see it every day that you come into work, and that keeps you going on. So it's nice to think about that and want to be that person for your growing team as well. So yeah, thank you. That's amazing.
Let me ask you a follow-up to that, Jimmy, and to all you guys, but to you in particular, Jimmy. So how does one see that? If I were completely just how does one see that other than just in your actions every day? Is there something that you do that inspire people? I mean, you've talked about quite a few things that are really inspiring within your agency, but and just the way that you think about and came up with the name. But is there something that you do that shows that leadership quality, that you love what you do?
I get accused of working too much, but I don't ask. I'm not sitting up there over somebody's shoulder. You guys stay here because I remember John Jay. I call him Dr. J at White and Kennedy. And when I first got there, he was my boss, and he'd be in the office. It's 6 o'clock. So you're hanging out 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock. And it'd be like 11 o'clock. And it said, dude, hey, John, you mind if I go home? I said, Jimmy, you don't have to. This is what I do. You don't have to stay here because this is what I do. And he never held me to that. But because I liked what I was doing, I naturally was, up early and staying late. And so, not too many people I know who go at it like that don't enjoy it. You try and get out of there as quickly as possible and whatnot. And I think that's one of the things that, people see and they go, you work a lot. And I said, doesn't seem like work. So if it doesn't seem like work, must be having fun. Love
what you do, and you'll never work a day in your life. I love that. And Gavin, for you, leading from behind, I think it was Karin who said, have a vision, and you do, and that as well. But is there a point when you see you pretty much let people kind of do their thing, you give them some autonomy? Is there a moment when you see that you need to step in, or how do you judge that moment where you're like, oh shit, pull out the nets, or raise it higher, or lower it, or?
Well, like I think I said, I think I can. Sometimes, experience you can see the answer quickly, right? And someone may have a bunch of ideas, and you'll see it, and you can point it out, or you can see the problem ahead of time, and you can point that out. And that, I think that's savor of time. It's not about you coming in and having the winning idea, but it's about kind of shining a light on where the solutions are. That's where I think it is. So I think every day is different in advertising, but there are patterns. You do see kind of patterns, like in every 5 years, you see these kind of similar revolutions, like big agencies try and reinvent themselves. Kind of we go from the age of disruption to the age of engagement, so we see these kind of patterns. And the more experience you have, the more you can apply some of that, to help your staff, by learning and knowing that there are, like Peter Tosh said, in the garden of beautiful flowers, all are equal, right? By knowing that everybody has something and it's not just mine, I think you can let go and see things just thrive.
I love it. Karin, is there anything you want to add before I go into the next question? Cool.
These men are wise.
And you all three are very wise. Are you kidding? Did you have a mentor? Who were they, and what have they taught you? Let's start with you, Karin.
My mentor actually was my professor at Art Center in LA when I first came there. And I married him.
So you were the scandal.
So that was, So yeah, that was quite scandalous at the time, but very exciting. Yeah, he was my professor, 5th term advertising concepts at Art Center. We've been together over 30 years now, and he's my mentor. And he was my mentor in school. He helped me he was the one who pointed out, you're always trying to do what's right, even if you're not even sure how to do it. And he helped me. I was in his class that I sort of discovered what I wanted to be when I grew up, and discovered my passion for this weird business that we're in that combines all these different things that I love to do, but that I never knew came together in one place. And as I've grown in the business and as I've become a leader, he's been retired now from the business for many years. He's a fine artist who paints. And so, but the fact that he knows exactly what I'm going through or what the dynamics are, like Gavin said, certain patterns keep coming back. Like for years now, I've been able to come home and have someone to process, like, how do I handle this difficult client? Or how do I go back at the problem one more time in a different way? Or how do I re-inspire a team that's demoralized? He's been my, in The Godfather, Robert Duvall's role, the consigliere. Whenever I take a new job, I say to my employers, you're getting a 2-for-1 because I have a consigliere at home.
I love that. That's genius. That's brilliant. Thanks for sharing that story. That's a good one. I didn't expect that. Jimmy, what about you?
No, I have had a few. That's a dope story, though.
That is totally.
My first one would be probably Lewis Williams over at Burrell.
Yeah.
Not probably. He was the first mentor.
Yep.
He's a
great guy.
CEO over there now. He what was his thing? He'd say they'll try and make it look like it's a secret. Just got to remember, it ain't rocket science. Joe Muse, when he had Muscadero Chin, his thing was, whatever you do, don't let them get you babbling. Dan's, everybody, a bunch of people know Dan's is the work comes first. And what I learned from Lee was, if they're, his thing was the work comes first, even if they're coming out of the nincompoop force.
He loved the nincompoop. Even
if the client is a nincompoop, still you got to give them your best. You can't just tell them to fuck off.
Yeah, that's amazing. I love that. Those are 4 great mentors for sure. What about you, Gavin?
So I would say John Hegarty. I was fortunate enough to work, him as my boss and be my creative director on things as well, and Levi's and all sorts of things. So he would always come into your office and stand and say, good is the enemy of great. And it would just be very profound with things. But, he had exceptional taste, and he was always about kind of jumping over our industry into culture a long time before we started to talk about how we are competing against Beyonce. And just a very kind of elegant man, and thoughtful and provocative. So I would owe a lot to John. I would also say that there are mentors in my life that they were bad, right? And I learned from them, right? And I won't name their names, right? But I guess they weren't authentic to who they were. And I think that was a big issue. And one thing I think you need to be in this business is confident, right? And confidence comes from knowing yourself. So seeing the actions of some of these kind of people mentored me, right? Because I was put off by that. So I think a mentor can work differently.
Yeah, but you learn, so that's great.
Yeah.
What each one of you, do you in your particular agencies have a mentorship program, or is there some way that you mentor or inspire young talent? Anybody can go first; it doesn't matter.
So I talk about. Sorry, jumping in there. I talk about flight paths, right? Everybody wants to be a CCO in the creative department one day. Of course they do. Who wouldn't? But you also realize everyone wants to go to heaven, but nobody wants to die, right? Nobody realizes that the work that you have to put in to be that, or the kind of some of the kind of sacrifices you have to make at times, are really tough. So we talk about flight. I've talked about flight plan. I said, let's talk about where your final destination is and how we can help you get there. And if it may not be this agency that you reach that, but we will, whatever it is, we will make you as weaponize you as best as possible for whatever's next. So I think that's what we do. So it's constantly having quarterly conversations with our staff and making sure that it's never damning. It's always about encouraging,
What about you, Jimmy? Do you guys have a particular program that you work within the agency, or how does your young people, get the inspiration or the motivation to continue to do better and better, or be more creative?
I'm sure it's like this for a bunch of us. Just being who you are is you're mentoring all the time, because people will text you, email you, you'll speak, they'll see this and they'll holler at you. So you're mentoring even when you don't know you're mentoring. But we're all Black people. I started that with Jeff Goodby about 10 years ago for the One Club. So we do that. We also, the One Club has things where you go off to creative boot camp. So I've been to South Africa, I don't know how many times, to mentor and help some of the folks over there who want to get into advertising. So it's a lot of that. With 72 and Sunny, I work with them a little bit, and one of the creative leaders over there, even along with my own company, Amusement Park Entertainment. So do a lot of mentoring over there. So happens often.
What about you, Karin?
I have one particular area that I feel really passionate about, that I mentor women. Area I mentor women a lot, and which is about money, which is about asking for what you're worth, negotiating for a raise. It's something that's sort of taboo. People don't talk about it, but it's really important. And as women are coming up in the business and starting to have a seat at the table and having more leadership, they need to learn how to ask. Women need to learn how to ask for what they're worth. I'm sure you know about the study on LinkedIn about the differences between the genders looking for jobs, and that what they found is, on average, if a guy has 9 out of 10 of the things the job asks for, he feels confident to apply. If a guy has 5 out of 10 of the things the job asks for, he feels confident enough to apply for the job and figures he'll wing it or learn the other 5 along the way. While young women will look at a job description, and if they only have 9 out of 10, they don't feel like they're good enough to apply for that job. And that was a massive study. And so I have kind of just decided that I'm going to be there for young women who want to learn about how to negotiate regarding money. And I do it for anybody who reaches out to me. Like Jimmy says, people text me, people email me, people reach out to me on LinkedIn. Usually whenever I've given a talk somewhere and mentioned it, the floods come out afterwards. And now there's something particularly rewarding, which is happening, which is my daughter just graduated from college, and her girlfriends and her generation of friends and girls in her group are coming to me now for mentoring, which I find particularly rewarding.
Wow, that's great. What would you tell your younger, and I would say 10-year-old self, Gavin?
I'd say, when they say you're over the hill, tell your younger self, at least I went over it.
I love that. You're hardly over the hill. And I don't think you
haven't seen my knees.
What about you, Jimmy?
Oh, I don't know, dude. I don't know what I would tell myself. I mean, obviously there's stuff that you learn, but you can't learn it until you learn it. And there's something about the journey. I used to hate the journey. You hear all that. I used to call that bull crap. You hear Phil Jackson, whatever, coach, talking about, it's about the journey. Say, screw that, man. I want to get to the spot and be there. But there are a bunch of things that have happened, particularly over the last 3-4 years, that if I would have gotten what I wanted. So that's what I would tell myself. If I had gotten what I wanted before it was time, before I knew whatever it was I was supposed to learn along the journey, I would have fucked it up. But because of that journey and landmines and stepping on this and whatever. So don't. I guess I would tell myself the journey's okay. Journey's cool.
I love that. You know, that's a great one. You know, there's that Garth Brooks song, "Thank God for Unanswered Prayers." You know, that's what that reminds me of. It's like, you know, and I never thought about it that way, but I think that's a really great, wise thing to say. It's like, you know, yeah. If you had thought, you know, told yourself you would be in a different place, you know, but that's interesting. What about you, Karin?
I was just thinking another way to say what you guys were talking about is careful what you wish for.
Yes.
I think what I would have told myself is something that my mentor told me 10 years, 12 years later, go with your gut. I think when I was in my teens and late teens and early 20s, I was overthinking stuff so much. And I was like deep trying to figure out all this stuff. And I was full of self-doubt and full of just constantly overthinking things. And I think during the times in my life when I've had a difficult time or struggled with something, I was really in my head overthinking things. And when I've trusted my gut and gone with it, things have felt right.
Wow. I love it. Well, we'll end on that. And I just, once again, thank you guys. A great inspiring. I know we didn't hit the 30-minute mark or even the hour mark, but I really do appreciate your thoughts, your inspirational words and your time. Have a great rest of the day. And, you know, thank you for being such great leaders. And thanks for taking the time to talk to us at LBB and Great Guns. Really, really appreciate it. Gavin, Phoebe,
Karin. So inspiring to hear from you. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having us.
Absolutely. It was really great.